Well, great. I see that we have a critical mass already here joining us. Once again, to all of you that have just joined us, welcome to the first webinar of the Digital Connectors programming that we are doing for the Southern Caribbean. My name is Leo Naut, Deputy Executive Director of Caribbean Export Development Agency. And we are all here gathered as part of the sub-programming that we're doing specifically for the Caribbean out of the EU-LAC Digital Accelerator. So we're all very happy to have you here and really want to thank you for giving us this part of your morning to learn about how Caribbean firms can turn data into clients and productivity. One of the key things for Caribbean Export is really to be able to prepare and provide the tools and assistance to help the private sector really reach its new goals. And we really are interested in helping you in terms of MSMEs and startups and corporates to really push forward digital transformation in the Caribbean. You're going to hear a lot of good things, particularly from key experts that have been in the field, in the region, really making a difference and helping companies on how to be able to use big data and how to take that data and break it down into actionable results. You'll also hear a little bit of an overview of our how does the digital accelerator work and how you can actually be part of it. And all of this to note that we will be in Barbados in June, on June 4th, with an in-person conference where we'll be talking about how the digital accelerator can help you and your business. How can you participate in the digital accelerator with the hopes of partnering with corporates and startups from Latin America and Europe? And how do we accelerate that partnership into meaningful impact? With that said, I'm going to kick it over directly and start this webinar. Just a couple of admin rules. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat to be able to do that. We will definitely take them as they come in. We will be having a Q&A session towards the end of this webinar, so we'll definitely address them there. Whatever we're not able to address in the webinar, we would definitely follow up via email. With that said, I want to introduce Dr. Florian Luetticken, who is a member of the EU delegation in Barbados, to kick us off on this webinar and the entire programming. Florian, over to you.
Thank you so much, Leo. No, it's a great pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you for your participation. Allow me to explain shortly why we as European Union are supporting this, because what I noticed, I've been here in the Caribbean working for the last 4 years, and when we talk about the European Union, I notice that many people think about Spain, Germany, France, Italy, the traditionally bigger countries of the European Union, but actually the European Union is much more and has changed dramatically over the last 20 years. So we have lots of member states like Slovakia, Malta, Slovenia, the Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, Czech Republic, that are relatively less known in the Caribbean, but that are also bringing a lot to the table and fascinating parts of the European Union. So when you look at these countries in the mid 1990s, most of them had GDP per capita similar to Trinidad and Tobago, or like even considerably lower. So some of the Baltic countries had half the GDP per capita. And if you look at them nowadays, you will see that they have caught up and that they are really at the same level or even beyond, above many Caribbean countries in GDP per capita. And one of the main reasons for this is actually the digital transformation that took place in these countries. So Estonia is very well known worldwide as #1 country on e-governance. But also if you look at the others like Lithuania, Latvia, you will see that these are economies with very vibrant digital economies dominated by small and medium-sized companies. Because nowadays, when we think about digitalization, very often we think about these huge, gigantic companies from the US and from China, but actually you find there in many EU countries, European countries, a relatively newly developed group of these digital companies that really drive the economy and drive well-being. So we are really deeply convinced that small and medium companies in the digital field, it can really become market leaders, can really drive an economy, can really bring up the welfare and income levels of countries. So this is the reason why we engage with our partners, and the Caribbean is one of our closest partners globally on these kind of cooperations, and why we are so proud to be part of this initiative and of the Digital Accelerator, and to be able to work with you on this. I mean, the Digital Accelerator, as Leo mentioned, it's part of a broader framework of an EU-LAC digital alliance, where we work in different fields together, from connectivity to Earth observation data, etc. I will not get into the detail today, but this is a good example how we want to contribute to this, to creating this digital economy. And the Accelerator has already built a platform that includes close to 400 corporates and more than 2,000 startups and SMEs. And I think that's really amazing work that has been done by the program and by the people around it. So congratulations for that. And it also shows concrete results, like we have already 6 partnerships between startups and corporates that have been established through the Accelerator in Trinidad and Tobago, in Barbados, in the Dominican Republic, in Jamaica. So I think these are all very important contributions, and I hope that you will benefit from the seminar today, that you will learn much more about the opportunities it offers and the potential that is in this kind, that lays in this kind of cooperation. So yeah, thank you again for your participation, for your interest, and I wish you a very fruitful and informative session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Florian. And we are deeply grateful to the European Union for its continued support, particularly as it's fully funding the EU-LAC Digital Accelerator program, and also for being a longstanding and trusted partner of Caribbean Export Development Agency since the inception of the agency. Caribbean Export is coming into its 30th birthday, and the European Union has definitely has been there hand in hand with this, with all of our programming and initiatives. But with that said, really want to thank you for your time. And now I want to kick it over to my colleague, Jonathan Seecharan, who will be the moderator for today's webinar. So guys, I leave you with our with our Innovation and Digital Business Officer, Jonathan Seecharan. Take it over.
Thank you so much, Leo, for that wonderful introduction. As we get prepared for our moderated session, it would be remiss of me not to introduce our expert panelists joining us today to share their insights. Firstly, we have Ms. Ebony De Leon, who is one of the Caribbean's leading voice in data and analytics. As the former head of analytics at Guardian Group, she has led regional AI initiatives and building high-performance teams. She now leads and is now the CEO of DataAura Analytics, empowering Caribbean businesses through data-driven innovation. And alongside her, we have Mr. Dennis Augustine. He's a seasoned solutions architect, an entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience driving digital transformation, enterprise IT strategy, and innovation throughout the Caribbean. And he likes to say he's a collector of people. So with that said, I welcome you all both. With those introductions and with the experience that our panelists have today, I would just like to start with Dennis. Dennis, for our session today, and from your experience working with businesses up and down the island within the region, why do why do so many firms struggle to use data that they already have, and how does that limit their ability to plan, forecast, and manage risk effectively with this data?
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Thanks, first of all, to EU-LAC for having me. I trust that my screen is moving because some of my colleagues froze for me in very entertaining positions. So mine is moving, right? I'm good? Very good.
Yeah, we can see you well.
All right, good. Well, first of all, I think, Jonathan, that one of the first things is that we fail to recognize the value of data. If you took a look at the global economic landscape, one of the largest parts of the global economy right now is digital. One of the most valuable companies in the world is Google. And what does Google do for you? What do they give you? The same data that we gave them. So they've been mining data since the 80s. They've become one of the most valuable companies on earth. If you look down that line, you'll find, again, Meta on that front as well. And Meta, what did Meta do in the 80s? It started monetizing our data, segmentation. I spent a lot of time in the digital space doing digital marketing, and I was part of the group of people who did something called segmentation and personalization back in the 80s when I and another DX Alliance colleague of mine, Mr. John West, former CEO of Sitecore, was working on those kind of personalization campaigns. And Meta turned people's data and understanding what people did into a multi-billion-dollar business, having made many hundreds of billions of dollars since the 80s, since the early 2005 when they started till now. So I think we don't recognize the value of that data, first of all, and we need to do that. I'll just quickly cite, there's a great book by an author called Yuval Noah Harari, a book called Nexus, in which Harari says, in the past, if you wanted to subjugate a people, you extracted their raw materials, and as we know, being descendants of the African diaspora, you extracted their bodies, you extracted their work, and you extracted those things. Today, you don't need to do that. All you do is extract their data. And that is the new oil. So we fail to recognize the value of the data, first of all, Jonathan. I think that we fail to recognize the data that we do have. When that person walks into your store at the same day or, from Monday to Friday at the same time every time, that's data. When some customer walks in and asks you for something and your staff, says, oh, we don't have that, and they walk out of this, well, that was data. So we are failing to recognize the data as well that we do have. We think data is some complicated thing. It's all of the information that you deal with every day is data. I think the third thing I would cite is inertia. I think we fail to act on it because, hey, listen, I know my customer. I've been running my business for 20, 30, 40 years. I know what they need. I don't need any data analytics to tell me what they want. But let me tell you that even if you've been doing your work for a decade, 2026 is not 2016. I'll say that my space, in terms of the knowledge work, for example, has been radically changed by, of course, you know what I'm going to say, AI, over the last few years. The e-commerce space has been radically changed for the last few years by companies like Amazon, which is now shipping to the Caribbean. If you order in Amazon over a certain amount, they will ship free, and they are willing to lose money to send goods to the Caribbean, and they're coming for you. Ask anybody in small town America where an Amazon distribution center opened up in their county. what happened to their business shortly after that started to happen. So 2026 is not the same. That started happening in 2025. If you're in Barbados, they started shipping to Barbados in 2025 and other places around the Caribbean. So that is different. And if we rest on our laurels, we're going to be caught unawares. People should remember where there used to be video stores. Remember, you used to be able to go and buy a video, and then all of a sudden, overnight, somebody looking at what people wanted decided to open up streaming services, leveraged that data, gave them what they want, and now YouTube and Netflix, they own that market, and those stores are gone in a flash. So I also want to say that it's not 2026 is very different. So let's break that inertia. Let's not rest on our laurels and think that we're safe. Another thing, I think we have to also understand that data by itself, and it might sound funny when I say it, but data by itself is meaningless. It's not structured. It's not yet information. It's not yet literally in formation. It's not structured. It's not in context. You need to be able to put that data in context and to structure it the right way so that it's meaningful. And I think Ebony will talk more about some of these things practically, how you do that. But you need to have the certain sort of a data sense in order to structure it so that it is now information and informational so that you can get knowledge out of it. But, Jonathan, I also just want to not to have us leave on just the negative side of things. I think, let me also say that there's a positive side of data in this Caribbean context that we need to be very much aware of. I started off talking about personalization, right? And segmentation. Well, that can be the secret power of small and medium business. Because at the end of the day, what is really driving sales right now, even on the large scale, was people using data so that they get to understand me. Who understands me better than the person who runs the store that I've known for 20 years, right? And if we have a relationship that's built on trust, and then I start talking to them, they capture that data. They start to understand what people in the neighborhood need. They could service their neighborhood, their country, their county, their parish better than the Amazons of the world can because they know their customer intimately. And I think that is the thing that we need to latch onto as a Caribbean community, that the small nature of our towns, the small nature of our islands and of our communities mean that the same techniques that work in North America, where you have much larger populations and demographics, are not the same ones we want to adopt here. What we want to do is to have something that is fit for our context. And that is something where I think small and medium business is about to thrive, because the same tools that were available to the Amazons of the world long ago, or the Blockbusters of the world, or the Metas of the world long ago, are now available to each and every one of you. But you know your people. You know your people better than they ever would. And your people know you and can trust you better than they ever would. And if you're able then to have those communications, to capture things like those out of stock items, have conversations with those people, understand when their birthdays are, if they just had a kid, understand when the cycles of your school run, what holidays are coming up, you can be better prepared than the Amazons of the world to take advantage of those opportunities. So I think that's what I want to leave you with. Yeah, we don't value data enough. Data is the new oil, and it is currently the thing that we need to start owning and sharing with each other. And I want to thank you, Jonathan, and Caribbean Export. We've done some interesting work with data around with MSMEs. I won't steal your thunder. I know you're looking forward to sharing that later on, some of the insights that we have. But I will say that, for example, we know that more than half of the people on this call who advertise right now on those platforms like Meta are not transacting and not selling a single thing online. Huge opportunity that is missed. We have an opportunity to take advantage of it, to accelerate ourselves, and I dare say not catch up, but to create something special in this region that's personalized for our region.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that, Dennis. And I could not have asked for a much more perfect segue for Ebony by pointing out and what you stress, the value of data and turning data into information by creating that structure and the contextualization of the Caribbean. I think that is a perfect segue, Ebony, for my follow-up question to you. Based on or building on what Dennis has said and your own experience, for businesses that want to become more data-driven, where should they realistically start? And not where should they realistically start alone, but how can they begin turning everyday data into actionable insights, or using tools, different tools like dashboards, for example?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Jonathan, for the intro. Thank you, Dennis, for kicking us off in such a wonderful way, because I think, you instill a little bit of fear, but I think the fear is necessary because it's real, and I am very grateful to Caribbean Export and EU-LAC for having me as well. So to start things off, we all heard Dennis speak about the fact that companies like Amazon are very likely to disrupt our regional businesses in the near future. Why is that? Well, because they're able to make decisions much faster than us. They're able to price dynamically, and they're able to identify customer trends even earlier than we are, because they know how to leverage data that they have operationally every single day, right? I want to start by proposing a question to the audience, and I really want you to consider from your point of view, if this is how you think, right? If I told you that the single biggest competitive threat to your business right now is not Amazon, because we're talking about right now, it's not Amazon or a new competitor, but your own spreadsheets, would you believe me? And I ask this question because this is what I see again and again across the Caribbean, because we are sitting on years of data. Sales data, customer data, operational data, and we are still making the most important decisions in our business based on what we remember or a gut feeling. And this is not because our businesses and our business owners don't care, but I think it's because nobody's really showed us how to connect the dots between leveraging that really valuable data that we have and making it a business opportunity in a very real way. So Dennis described a lot about what is at stake. Now, what I want to talk about is what is the path out of it? And I want to make this as concrete as possible for you guys, because I know a lot of people say you need to become more data-driven, right? And it sounds really good in a webinar to say these things. But when Monday morning comes, what is the first step that you have to take to actually become more data-driven? So where does a business realistically start? I'm going to give you 3 very practical questions. And I think if you start here and you end here, you're going to move in the direction that you absolutely need to. The first question I think companies need to ask is, what important decisions am I making every week based on a gut feeling rather than using my data to support it, right? And I want you to think from your business perspective. Are there concerns that you are thinking about on a regular basis, like which products are constantly out of stock? Why are my margins shrinking? Which customers am I about to lose? Do I offer promotions, and are they performing better in one location than in another location? So you're thinking about these questions weekly, and what are you using to answer those questions? The second thing that I think we need to ask ourselves, what data do I actually have that relates to that decision? So, and I want to be clear, most Caribbean businesses have way more data, as Dennis was alluding to, than you realize. Now, you already have your point of sale system, which has years of sales history. You have your accounting systems that already show you how your customers pay and what their payment behavior is like. We have delivery records that will show us any kind of operational inefficiencies that exist. And, I know customers, companies say, oh, well, we have data in Excel, but it's really bad. That is okay. Data in Excel is still valuable data, even if it's not in pristine condition, right? The third question that you have to ask is, what is the smallest thing that I could build or automate that would make that decision easier every single week, right? I think this is the critical part. Most of our firms, our Caribbean firms, we try to do too much too fast. We're trying to boil the ocean over here. We hear terms like AI, machine learning, predictive analytics, and we assume that these transformations have to be very complex, they have to be expensive. That is not the truth. In reality, the most successful transformations require clarity, one clear pain point that you are trying to solve, and a decision to act, right? And that is where the leadership comes in, because if you have the data and you have the decisions coming out of the data, what are you going to do? You need to actually act on it, leverage it. So once you have those three answers, you're not guessing anymore, right? So let me give you a real tangible example so you can understand how we are starting to leverage that in the Caribbean in a very real way. I want to tell you about a mid-sized grocery retailer in Trinidad. It's very typical. They have multiple locations. It's a solid operation. They've been profitable for decades, right? When we first sat down with them, as usual, the reporting is primarily manual. Every month, a team member is going to pull figures from their point of sale system, going to put it into Excel, and they're going to spend days building a report that is going to be delivered at the end of the month. By the time the CEO gets this on his desk, the data is now 2 weeks old. Half the decisions that the CEO needed to make, they've already been made, but it was made on instinct, also known as what would we normally do, right? That's how we're making the decision. And if this sounds familiar to you, then it means that you're not fully leveraging the data that's available within your systems. The company had thousands of products across multiple locations, dozens of suppliers, they were running promotions all the time, and there was no clear view of what was actually driving their profit versus what was just driving volume. And for a company, an organization, that's a critical distinction, right? So we started again, first question, what decision are you making weekly on gut instinct rather than data? And trust me, they knew one time, they were like reordering. They are constantly over-ordering some product lines, running out of other things, writing off perishables that are sitting in their, warehouse or their, stock inventory for too long. And just getting that one decision right was going to be worth serious money for them. So here's what we did. And this is going to sound underwhelming because, like I tell you, we overthink what this entails. But this changed everything for them. We cleaned their product data. We categorized all of the SKUs, and there were thousands of them. And then we built a very simple dashboard. This shows where, their products are in terms of what's driving the margins, what's driving the volume, which locations are trending up, which promotions are actually working versus which ones that are just moving units, probably at a loss, right? And so what I want you to get is that what we did there was no AI. There was no machine learning, no expensive infrastructure. What we did was we just got clean data, we clearly visualized it, and we put it in the hands of the people who were making the decisions, but in a very timely manner, so that the decisions that they made mattered for the business. And here's what happened. Like within the organization, the conversation changed. The CEO stopped asking, how were the sales this month, which is the question they ask every month, and then started asking, well, why did this location outperform the other location? So what you're seeing there is a shift, and it's going from descriptive analytics, where it's like we're just trying to describe what happened, to now diagnostic analytics, where we're trying to diagnose what's causing the problem and how do we fix it. Another problem, another data set that we can clean, another opportunity to get that right. So that's the real transformation. And to me, that is what becoming data-driven in the Caribbean looks like. It's not a big bang, explosive transformation and a technology project. It's a clear question, clean data, and a simple tool that is going to earn trust in the business over time. So what we are trying to get companies to understand is that we want to get you to better decisions, faster decisions, more consistent decision-making. I'll give you an even simpler example to show you how we are overcomplicating the idea of data-driven decision-making. I heard Dennis kind of reference this a little bit, where the e-commerce websites and customers not recognizing what's not being sold. So we had another client who has an e-commerce site as one of their sales channels. And that was one of the questions I asked him. I said, have you looked at the products that people search for on your website and they got 0 results? What product? What product is that? What's showing up the most for that? And he was like, I don't know. Why? And I said, well, if you think about it, the data is showing you an item that customers already have a clear demand for. Why aren't you selling it? And he was like, oh, he checked the analytics. He saw hundreds of searches over the course of months for a very specific school item. And immediately he went out and sourced the product. Instant sales. You know what I mean? So I want you all to get the concept that the idea that we have behind what data is and how complex it is to get value out of it, it's not that hard. But you have to start somewhere, and you have to start simply, and it's going to add a lot of value, and it's going to compound. So, I don't want to take too long, but let me wrap it up by saying this. I think, as I'm going to echo Dennis, that we have a real opportunity in the Caribbean, because I think many developed markets are now trying to modernize decades of legacy infrastructure, fragmented systems that we've been running for many, many years. And we are early enough in our transformation that we can leapfrog into some of the newer technologies, cloud-based analytics tools, and all of that without carrying a lot of our historical baggage that we have. But it only works if we focus on the fundamentals first. And that means you have to have clean data. You have to have very clear definitions within your systems. You have to have leadership alignment. That's a key one. And a willingness to experiment. There are going to be things that you do that probably will fail, but that is okay, because at the end of the day, the benefit is going to outweigh the cost, and we have to be willing to take those risks. I don't think most of our companies have a technology problem first. We have a decision-making problem right now, and we need to solve it, but that only comes if leadership is going to be willing to act. And the scary part about that is that when you start digging into the data, you're going to see transparency, and that can be uncomfortable, because you may see things like pricing inconsistencies, operational inefficiencies, poor accountability. So to me, becoming data-driven is more of a cultural shift as well as a technical shift. And that cultural shift is where we also have to get our mindset, our employees' mindset, our company's mindset in the right space. Right? I want to let you all understand, like the Caribbean, just taking like the retail sector alone, that is a $28 billion market in the Caribbean, growing at nearly 4% a year. We have traditional businesses here, family-owned shops, and they still make up a significant amount of that group. It's about 45 to 60% of that group. These are businesses with real data, real customers, and real problems that data and analytics can solve. And we don't need to wait for someone else to come in and be our savior or take away our business opportunity, like the Amazons and the Metas. I think for us, the firms that are going to win the next decade aren't going to be the ones with the biggest budgets and the most tech. They're going to be the ones that are going to ask the right question first. They're going to clean up their data second. And they're going to build the simplest tool that's going to solve that problem. And then they're going to do it again and again and again. And that is what the data-driven journey looks like. And that is what I think we need to start in the Caribbean right now. I'll stop there, Jonathan, because clearly I can go on a lot more.
Thank you so much for that contribution, Ebony. And also, Dennis, I think if you aren't motivated to use your data as a company after hearing both Dennis and Ebony speak, I don't know what else to say. Some of the things I would just like to pinpoint and reiterate from the conversation, valuing data. Then both Dennis and Ebony, you mentioned valuing data and turning that data into something meaningful, but also not overcomplicating the process, as Ebony pointed out, the 3 simple questions. And it can be iterated again and again to be improved. And I think that is very, very important for our firms here in the Caribbean to understand, because it can lead to that level of disruption that you both spoke about in your contributions. So, I mean, it has been a wonderful, insightful contribution from you both. Let me take the opportunity to thank both of you for your contributions. I think for me personally, even working in the digital space, it's still always good to hear, how can we leverage data and how we can use data and not overcomplicate the process, because it can seem from the outset very daunting. So let me take the opportunity to thank both Dennis and Ebony again for being here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
As
Jonathan.
we, not a problem. As we move on to our other segment, I would just like to encourage all participants, if you have questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to share your questions, and the team will do its best to respond to as many questions as they can. So we've talked about the technical aspects of data and how to leverage data. Now, how do we synthesize that in a programmatic format? So what I would like to do now is introduce Mr. Miguel Rodríguez Villarreal, who is part of our EU-LAC Digital Accelerator team and also work at Optantis, one of our consortium partners under the EU-LAC umbrella, as the Open Innovation Consultant. Miguel has spent the better part of over 16 years working with companies and entrepreneurs to develop new businesses, and has also led startup incubation and acceleration programs. Over the years, he has gained a deep expertise on how corporates can innovate with startups, implementing emerging technologies to optimize their operations. Miguel, with that introduction, I ask you to take the floor.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's really nice to hear from the insights from Ebony and Dennis. Thank you so much for that. I believe that we can relate to what you are saying, and this is what we are seeing on a daily basis within EU-LAC Digital Accelerator. I mean, on one side, corporates who needs to leverage on the data that they have in order to remain competitive, to build new solutions, new revenue streams, to save costs. This is something that is really, really common wherever it is in Europe, Latin America, or the Caribbean. Conversations that we have with corporates, everyone is looking for the same. How can I use my data in order to generate new revenue streams, save costs? On the other sides, more and more those corporates are relying on startups or small companies in order to solve those challenges. I mean, everything goes so fast. Technology evolves really fast, and more those corporates are relying a lot on startups in order to solve those problems. Matching what corporates needs and what startups can offer is what we are doing within our accelerator. I will try to summarize very briefly what we do, how we try to promote those partnerships, and how Caribbean companies can engage with us. So I will summarize this very briefly. As Jonathan was mentioning, we will be in Barbados during the first week of June. So really happy to meet you all there, or connect by online in order to get involved in the accelerator. Very briefly, and I will go straight to the point. EU-LAC Digital Accelerator is what we are doing is promoting partnerships between corporates and startups in order to build market-ready digital solutions. What we do is connecting companies from Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean. So we are promoting international partnerships. And this is a program that is 100% funded by the European Union, and there are several companies who are running daily operations, but this is a program from the European Union. The journey in order to make this happen is quite long, and it takes a lot of time in order to make it work. I mean, making corporates and startups together takes time from since we identify a need from a corporate, we find a solver, they sign a contract, and we do a pilot or a proof of concept in order to prove that this could work. But this is what we have been doing during the last few years. We have several initiatives, several tools in order to make this happen. But the main relevant thing, or what we are offering here for startups, is helping to identify the appropriate customers and partners, and then helping them to really test the solution with a corporate in order to prove that this could work. So this is the pathway that we have, both for corporates and for startups. So far, I mean, we are really proud of what we are achieving to date. Up to May, we have been able to identify more than 100 partnership opportunities between corporates and startups, and we are in the process of accelerate 72 of them. So those are the main figures that we can relate, or that we can show. 100 partnerships that have been facilitated through the accelerator, and currently we are working more on a one-on-one basis with 72 of them. So it's not that bad. Our goal is to reach 100 partnerships supported by 2027. So we have still 1 year and a half ahead of running this program. In our website, you could see some examples on what we are doing. As it was mentioned at the very beginning, I mean, there are many countries, many profiles of companies involved within the accelerator. So here in our website, you will see different kind of challenge solutions, countries that have been involved during these years. We are also very proud that up to date there are 7 partnerships, 7 companies from the Caribbean who has been already accelerated. We have a few more from Republican Dominic and Aruba who are signing the contracts in order to start the process. But so far we are proud that we have the first batch of Caribbean companies engaged within our accelerator. And right now we have more than 14 active challenges from corporates who are looking for solvers from Europe or Latin America. So there is still room for progress to engage more and more companies from the Caribbean, but we have the very first set of partnerships and participants from the Caribbean, and we want to work on that. Several tools that you have, or there are 2 main ways for any company from the Caribbean who is looking to engage with the accelerator. The first one is joining our matching platform through our website. For us, this is like a marketplace of digital challenge. There you will see companies from different regions, from different sectors, and with different needs that they need to address. So you can access through our website to a marketplace. So this is a first way of identifying new potential opportunities for your companies. And then on a regular basis, twice a year, we run open calls in which we encourage existing partnerships. Here, the requirement is that companies are already working together. So this is the requirement to apply for the open call. and we provide a set of services and grants in order to do some tests, to do a proof of concept or a pilot project in order to start the collaboration together. The current call is open until June 12th. So in case any of the attendants, you are already working with a company from Latin America or Europe, please let us know, as there is a good chance that we can apply together for this open call. What we are offering are a set of services from analyzing the market to getting to building a proposal for investors, to do some matchmaking with customers, with investors as well, to support on doing the proof of concept, building a prototype. So we have a set of 15, 17, 16 services that we are providing, and we customize depending on your requirements. And startups, they have access also to some grants up to 10,500K in order to do a test, in order to do a POC, in order to do a pilot together with their partner. So this is what we have to offer. As mentioned, in case that you already have a partner, please go to our website, apply to the open call, and let us know that you are already working with an international partner. In case not, you can access to our matching platform, so you can identify the current challenge that are active for our community. This accelerator is being possible thanks to an international consortium of partners from Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean. We have different sets of skills. We can cover different regions, different countries. So whatever your need is, I mean, we will be more than happy to support. And just final remarks, some things that we feel relevant and that is required for any company who is joining our accelerator. First is to really understand what corporates are looking for in startups. I mean, when they start a project together, there are three main things that we need to be aware. First is that they are looking for highly specialized teams in order to assess if emerging businesses, technologies are feasible or not. So this is the first thing that we highlight. Try to be as specific, as specialized in your value proposition as focus. Competition is international, so as specialized that you are, the better, in order to compete within the EU-LAC Digital Accelerator framework. Second things that corporates are looking is to do a proof of concept or pilot projects in order to start a collaboration and to reduce technical risk. I mean, this is the starting point. So second recommendation that we always provide is don't be too ambitious. Don't try to sell a full project from the very beginning. Let's start with a POC. Let's start with a pilot project and let everyone get together in the same room with a small project. And last recommendation is, or last thing that corporates, at least in EU-LAC, are looking for is for startups, small companies, as trusted providers and companies that are able to scale innovation into their processes and operations. It means that companies should be able not only to do a pilot, but to provide maintenance and to scale the solution that they are providing. On the other hand, everything what we do within the accelerator start with a proof of concept, with a pilot project. It has three benefits for participants. The first one is that it helps to build a business case. I mean, we need to convince corporates that the project is technically feasible, but that there is a financial goal there, that they can save costs, that they can generate revenue or whatever. A proof of concept helps to do that. I mean, to prove that there is a real business case. It is enabling that a future integration into company processes. I mean, it is quite hard to scale innovation into corporate structures. So defining a really good POC, pilot project, it helps a lot to do that and to start a conversation on that. And it also helps to align innovation teams, operations teams towards a common goal. So our recommendation is, if you are starting within the accelerator a project together with an international partner, let's start small, let's define a small project, let's validate that there is a business case there, and let's convince both the technical people and the business people that there is something that they could be of benefit for them. As mentioned, we will be in Barbados, so hopefully we can see some of you there during the first week of June. You have my contact as well, and you are in contact already with Caribbean Export team. So really happy to follow up by email, in person. Just feel free to get in touch. So that was it, just in a nutshell, what we are doing, and so happy to solve any question that you may have.
Thank you, Miguel, for that very detailed presentation on the digital accelerator and digital connectors. I saw that there were a few questions that were assiduously dealt with by our team. As questions came in, answers were provided. There is one question here, and I think Dennis would have answered it, but I'd really like to give Ebony an opportunity to just share her thoughts briefly on this particular question. And the question is to you, Ebony. Can you give us some suggestions for the kind of data that we should be looking at, especially the things that point to the psychology of the consumer? So what sort of data related to the psychology of consumers should SMEs and firms be capturing?
Yeah, so I think I was just actually reading Dennis's response, and he's spot on, of course. I think the first thing is that we capture limited information on our customers, right? And so a lot of times maybe you'll have their age, maybe their gender, and that might be it, email address. And so one of the things that you want to start doing is being able to get a little bit more information if possible. I know there are things like income. People aren't always willing to share that, but if you do it maybe in a range, you might be able to get that type of information. But for instance, like if you have location information on your customers or number of dependents that exist in a household, right? These kind of things can give you a little bit more insights. And there are ways to do it. For instance, loyalty programs are very good about capturing a little bit more data, rich data that can then be used to create profiles. And the thing is, the idea behind creating profiles on your customer is so you understand how to treat those customers in those different buckets, right? It affects how you target them. It affects maybe if you're doing some cross-selling or upselling opportunities, who you want to go after. And so it makes sure that the effort that you're making behind every customer is a worthwhile effort that is going to lead to a conversion. So you want to make sure that, you're trying to collect what information is important, not just have information, but have information that's going to add value to what you're trying to target the customers for. And then you're trying to create the profiles and, as Dennis was saying earlier, segment your customers so that you understand who are your different buckets. So what is going to appeal to me, for instance, one of the big things I've seen before is like, even when you're looking at pricing strategies and sales, right? Jonathan, you might want, if you see a 10% off, 20% off, you might run for that, right? And that may not work for me, but I might be a buy one, get one. And as soon as I see a buy one, get one, I'm there. So we have to understand what is going to motivate our customers to really convert into that sale. And when you start to get that information, analyze that information, and then leverage it, you start to really understand how you can effectively target and convert your customers as you're moving through your business operations.
Thanks
Dennis,
so much, Ebony.
to that?
No, I think that was well said. The other aspect of what I think, sorry, my mic's was over here. But the other aspect of what I added to that was the testing aspect of that. So you have certain assumptions about how people of this sort are going to want and behave in these ways. Well, that implies two things. you should put out some bait to see if you have people of this sort. Because if you're correct, then the person with young children will be more interested in vacations of this type than this other person. So when they book this kind of a room, you can understand that they might have children, and therefore you should probably send them a different email, a different welcome email than you would the other segment. So they're going to also validate your assumption by interacting with your content. So you want to put out content, you want to put out offers that help you determine what kind of segment they are in. And then if they're not behaving in that way, either they're not in that segment or you're wrong about the way people of that type behave. So it's really important to have a constant humility in your mindset to be informed by that data as you go along. But you have to come up with your your segments, your buckets first, your stereotypes, and then use your demographic data to get the first pass at them, but then get their behavioral data to really validate that you're actually talking to the right people.
Thanks for that, Dennis. Thanks for that, Ebony. With that said, we are just about to close, and I would like to reintroduce Mr. Leo Naut to close us off today. Leo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, and thank you to all of our speakers, particularly Florian and the entire EU team for really supporting these transformational projects in the region. Dennis and Ebony, I think your insights, as Jonathan mentioned, if you're not interested in tracking your data and utilizing your data after this webinar, I really think that you really motivated all of us to really pay close attention to that. And you gave us the insights, and Miguel really told us like what is the digital accelerator, but the importance of data and how you use data to participate into either proposing a solution to us as a solver or as a corporate, and when you're in an issue, a challenge. So I think we all have all of these insights that we take now onto us. And Jonathan, you did a great job as our moderator. So you definitely asked the right questions to really bring forward that information to our participants. We really want to thank you all for your time here. I do want to note, and we've put in the chat, that tomorrow we'll be having another webinar. This one, it will be focusing more on how to leverage AI in terms of coming up with innovative solutions for problem solving and actually working with corporates, which is a big part of what we do here at the EU-LAC Digital Accelerator. And as Miguel mentioned several times, we will be on the ground from June 3rd to June 5th in Barbados this year. We will be hosting an in-person workshop on June 4th at 10 a.m. in the Hotel Indigo. So I believe in the chat, we've also put in the registration link for that event. If not, we will also be sending a mailing to all of you today, thanking you for participation, but with all of these links as well included. And please follow us on social. You'll see we can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, or X. I still call it Twitter, and on YouTube. So this is the best way that you can get information on what the EU Digital LAC Accelerator is doing, what is coming up, and how best you can interact with us. We're always here available. And of course, always follow us as well in Caribbean Export Development Agency. We're available in all the social channels, and sign up to our newsletter where we provide this and many other opportunities available for MSMEs, private sector, and corporates from throughout the region. Thank you very much today. And with only 2 minutes over, we end this webinar. See you tomorrow and see you in a couple of weeks in Barbados. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
How was it? Yeah.
Thanks, Leo. Bye-bye.
Bye.